Good.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to tonight's episode of FPL Ambassador Show. We are glad to be back here with you guys, as usual, on your Thursdays, 6 p.m. I'm here with Raymond Nketsiah, the FPL Ambassador himself. Hello, Raymond.
Hello, Rowland. How are you
How are
today?
you? I'm well,
I'm
thank
good.
you. How about you? How about you?
I'm also good by God's grace.
That's great. That's great. That's great. And we have a new face on the show, Precious Arku. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to be
That's
here.
good to know. That's good to know. A fellow classmate in KNUST. So unfortunately, Marlvin couldn't be here with us tonight, but he extends his regards. So let's get the things rolling.
Okay.
Sure. So today we'll be looking at how to win mini leagues. Last week we made a special show for beginners, and managers were asking us, so what are we doing for experienced managers? And we told them that they shouldn't worry. We'll surely bring them something special for them. So before that, Roland, can you take us through this? People are joining our leagues so far.
Yes. I was asking you this afternoon the number of people who've joined, and you mentioned about 20 plus. That's very encouraging, and we are admonishing more people to join. Just subscribe to the channel, FPL Ambassador Show. We are on Instagram as well, and you know the winner receives a whooping 1,000 Ghana cedis. This is no 419. This is not corner brochina. No, it's preco pet.
Sure.
Shikayemi. So this one, as soon as the whole season comes to an end, we find out who the winner is. We just give you 1,000 Ghana cedis, and it will be live on this YouTube channel when the time is up. So kindly join the mini league, and please subscribe before you join the mini league. We've received information from the FPL ambassador himself that people have joined without subscribing. Kindly subscribe. Mm-hmm. And it's not when you feel that you're in the first position, second position, and you see your chances are great. That is when you want to subscribe. You are sure that. So you won't have any excuse to give. So kindly subscribe before the season starts. Thank you so much for patronizing us. And even though we know we are new, you guys have been good to us, and we appreciate it. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, please let's move on to the main business for the day.
Yeah. Before we move on, we just want to tell managers that we want to grow our channel. So we need your efforts, we need your likes, we need your subscriptions. That helps build the channel, and that helps YouTube to recommend our channel for other managers across the world. So then we'll move on to today's main agenda. Now we always talk about FPL. In fact, I know many managers are looking forward to winning the FPL overall worldwide, but out of 8 million managers, you winning is always very difficult, and it's such that people say that the joy of FPL is winning your mini league. That is when you meet people, your own friends, and then you're able to win, and then you have the bragging right to show how tactically astute you are, and so forth. And even winning organizational leagues, because it's very difficult to win the worldwide league. So the target normally for most managers is, this year I want to win my mini league, or I want to win this maybe organizational league, maybe the 3v3 league, maybe the GMABC league, or stuff like that. And then you have the bragging rights across board. So that is why we are concentrated on winning the mini leagues. But by following these tips, you can be the worldwide champion. And when you are the worldwide champion, don't forget to give us shout outs on the main FPL show worldwide. Okay. So the key point about winning FPL is captaincy. In fact, it's about captaincy and transfers. You can't talk about winning FPL without captaincy and vice captaincy. But the most important thing is about captaincy. Precious, what's your take on captaincy? What normally do you consider when you are choosing your captain for a game week?
So the main thing I consider is the fixtures for that week. And then in addition to that, which of my players are playing in the easiest fixtures. So for example, if let's say I have the top hitters, which I'm sure you talked about in the previous
Your shoes, yeah, sure.
Right. those are usually the main candidate for captaincy. That is the conservative way of
Approach.
approaching captaincy. Just look at your, not necessarily most expensive, but usually most expensive means they are more prolific in scoring and assisting. So what I usually do is I look at the top candidates and I say, okay, who has the easiest fixture this week, right? Um,
Yeah,
let's say if Mohamed Salah is at home against Norwich, for example, that's a no-brainer. Uh,
sure,
one of the top players and one of the top teams playing against a newly promoted side at home. Usually, when there's a clear case like that, there's less, black and white involved. Or sometimes you can
sure,
have, let's say, Salah away against Watford. I'm using all
sure.
the recently promoted teams.
Recent promoted teams, sure, sure,
Liverpool away against Watford versus, let's say, Manchester at home against Aston Villa. Now you can say, oh, Manchester is good, significantly better than Aston Villa, and they are playing at home, so perhaps I want to pick Fernandez or who is the
sure.
top hitter in my menus. But in those two scenarios, I'll still go with the Liverpool player playing away against a much weaker opponent, because that's the thing about the Premier League. It's a lot of the mid-table teams, they are very stubborn. Like they don't respect
Okay,
any of the top
top
teams. So
teams.
you
Okay,
have better luck against the bottom feeders away from home than you do against one of the mid table teams at home.
mhm,
Usually, one of the reasons in those games are very low scoring games. They
okay,
tend to be low scoring games, so you don't
okay.
there's less opportunities um, to have there's less opportunity to have goals and then your player doing very
Your
well.
player very
Um,
well. Okay,
and then
okay.
also
So
there's other scenarios where they are not quite clear cut, but I think you might have some insight
exercise. Yeah, sure.
on that.
So you're saying that most of the time you're looking at your opponent, the opponent your captain is facing, and you see how weak the opponent is. It's
Right.
not always about determining whether it's a home fixture or an away fixture. It's about the opponent that your captain is facing. So if Salah
Yeah.
is facing a Norwich away as compared to Fernandez facing Aston Villa at home, even though Fernandez has a home advantage, you are going to choose Salah over Fernandez. I think that's also quite very good, because sometimes we are always very the tendency is always to focus on the home player, because normally at home you have the home advantage, but as you said, most of these mid-table teams are quite stubborn when they go and meet the big teams at home. So I think we should note that as well. Now, that being said, we always tell managers that it's always important to check your vice captain. Most of the time the captain usually plays, but anything can happen. Anything can happen in a game week, and the game week whereby you don't choose your vice, and then your captain loses out the points, you are mostly affected as well there.
That's true.
Sure.
That's true.
Okay. What about transfers? Normally, what do you look at when you are making your transfers?
Hmm. I look at the first thing I look at is what needs do I need to address on my team.
My team. Sure.
It doesn't matter. Oh, there's this one player out there who's doing very well.
Mhm.
Do I need him on my team? Sometimes
Okay.
there's you can have in some seasons you have so many midfielders doing very well. So it's
Sure.
it's very tempting to, you know, remove one of your midfielders and bring in one player who's very hot right now. But
Okay.
I tend not to look at that, especially if my midfielders, they have had a good track record up to that point in that season.
Point in time. Okay.
Maybe they're
Sure.
just not having a good week or two. So that
Okay.
what I look at is my need. Do I have like it's my defense bad, it's my forward bad, and
Okay.
I look at it from there. So let's say if I have a forward or a striker who hasn't scored in like 6 game weeks, that's obviously a red flag that I
A
need
red
to get
flag.
him out
Sure.
at
Okay.
at all cost, at all
Okay.
costs. So that's where I go, and then I was okay. I need a forward, so I look at the list of forwards. Then it's a combination of both form and the upcoming fixtures for that player.
Okay.
So form being if they are in pretty good form over the last few game weeks, then they'll be on the list. But then it's not just the forms; it's also your upcoming games. Is it against tough opponents? Are they home or away? Even though in the captaincy side, I said, it doesn't matter whether it's home or away, but that it only doesn't matter if one opponent is much worse than the other. But
Worse than the other. Okay.
if the opponents are the same in terms of difficulty, the difficulty of the fixture, then I tend to favor more of the home fixtures than I do away fixtures. So the transfers is one, what needs do I have to fill on my team, and
Okay.
and then two, according to those needs, who are the players who are most informed and who have favorable fixtures going forward.
Okay, sure. So the first thing as managers we all need to do is ask yourself what are the defects in your team, which side of your team is not going on well, and then we have to tackle it. It's not just about which player do I want. It's not about you trying to get maybe a Pookie when the Pookie party is going on, or whether you want to get Buddy, or whether you want to get Ings, or whether you want to get Son. You look at your team and then ask yourself what are the problems in your team, and then based on that, you then determine to bring in a new player. That's a very very good thought. I think as managers we need to consider, because most often the focus is on which player is hitting form, and I don't want to miss the bandwagon, so I just want to get that player. But then it should be about one thing I've also been doing for quite a while in FPL, which made me win the Ghana League overall Ghana League and be among the top 1,000 2 years ago, was that I was, as you said, concentrate on your team. Don't look at what is happening in the whole field, because if you concentrate on your team, you're able to see which side is the weak points of your team and where you need to improve. Because most likely than not, even if people are hitting very high points, if you have a good and a solid team, you will still have good points that will keep you still rising up the ranks. You might not be getting maybe the 190 wild scores in a particular week, but if you are consistently getting 70, 80 points, you are building up your rank, and then over a longer period of time, you make the gains as compared to the one who is shifting from one player to the other. Rowland, do you have anything to say here about transfers?
Yes. You never stop to remind us that you are number one in Ghana. We know, and every episode we hear. Every episode we hear, so don't worry. I know until someone here beats your record, we'll continue to hear it every episode.
Oh, don't worry.
I mean, it's fantastic to have people who are good in the game and have played for a long while with us. I think Precious, I forgot to mention in the intro that, I mean, been part of the top 1 percentile in the whole world in seasons past. And I just have to mention that you are Raymond's mentor. I mean,
yes,
you are the one who throughout. And likewise, I have followed Raymond. So you are my grand mentor. So,
the students have become the teachers. I mean, I can't compete with the two of you anymore.
But still, the experience is still worth it.
Yes, it is. Sure. It is. And I think that Raymond, back to your question. I think you were on transfers, right?
Yeah.
Or what were you on?
We are on transfers.
Yes, transfers, and I'm thinking that, don't be in a haste to make a transfer. That's the thing that we should also tell people. When you look up the league at times, I remember last season I was somewhere around 15th, 16th. Oh, okay. Yeah. So now it's my turn to brag. Okay, so last season when I won our mini league, I remember that.
the chess soccer mini league, which involves engineers, and if you have engineers in an FPL league, it means a very tough league for you to win.
Thank you. I'm grateful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that season, last season, I didn't start off too well. And I think, Raymond, we did have some discussions concerning it. And I think somewhere in the season, I was 16th. So for me personally, I like to look at the people who are at the top, what teams they have, their captains. But everyone is different. Knowing you, Raymond, you don't do it that way. But that's how I do it to help me. Because if I see that Precious is ahead of me, I would like to know by how many points he's ahead of me. Right? So if Precious is ahead of me by 8 points, then I look at his team. He has Salah, he has Fernandes. Who has an easier fixture? Okay, Salah has an easier fixture. Can I go gung-ho and just follow the Salah, or should I do Fernandes? Sometimes just going according to what you're supposed to go, like just choosing the Salah, is the best option. I mean, with time, you have everyone has differentials in their teams. You understand? Or you want to make a transfer and bring in a differential. Like Joe Willock was so good for me last season, or he was so good to me last season, towards the tail end, because no one's mind was on Joe Willock. But here was the case that he had scored in 3 games in a row, right? Starting from the bench, he had scored 3 games in a row. So I took that kind of opportunity or that kind of gamble to make sure that I pick him in my team, and not only my team, but not on the subs bench, but in the main team as well, right? Because he started 3 games off the bench and he scored. The likelihood of him starting the next game is high. So I took that gamble. Unfortunately for me, it worked. While others were saying, oh no, at that point in time, pick Foden, pick other players around that 6 million region. So all the time, you also have to look at the players that the people ahead of you don't have. That's personally what works for me, right? Because I look at, how many points am I? There was a point where Prosper was leading, and he was leading with over 100 points. So how do I cut down the points to 100? He kept telling me, don't look at it. But everyone's style is different. Every morning when I wake up, I look at Prosper's points, and I'm wondering how can I reduce it? And it came to a time when I became so frustrated because Prosper, every transfer I was doing, Prosper was doing the same transfer as if he was in my head. You see, we can all relate to it, right? It's like I wanted Grealish. The next game he's going to buy Grealish. I'm like, okay, no problem. I want Iheanacho. The next game he gets him, and I wonder how can you close the gap? But it has to be steady. You shouldn't always be thinking that in one game I should be able to close the gap by 50. Maybe there are 10 more weeks to go. He's leading you by 100 points. What if I cut down the points to 10 to 12, from 10 to 15 points every game week? Try and cut it down. By the 5th game, 6th game week, you'll be at par with him, and it can propel you. If you have, we'll move on to the next one, which talks about the chips. If you have those ones, then use them to your advantage. So that's what I want to say.
So you talked about analyzing your opponents, which was the 4th point. It's quite important that as managers, sometimes when you are competing, you are playing against other managers. There's a need to analyze your opponents, scout and see where are the good side you can gain advantage on, and then move on as well. And then as Precious talked about planning of transfers, it's quite important that you plan your transfers. When you plan your transfers over a period of time, it helps you avoid jumping from one player to the other. And then as you plan the transfers, you talked about looking at the fixtures. So the fixtures is where you look at the fixture difficulty rating. You look over a period of time, you see that who has quite a very good set of easy fixtures ahead of him or her. I mean they are only guys in the teams so far. But ladies are playing FPL. Ladies are playing FPL as well. Sure. So you look at the FDR and then determine which players are quite very good. I want to make a very important point about hits. Most often managers always want to get the strongest team for a particular game week. But when you want to get the strongest team for a particular game week, you are tempted to make more than the one free transfer every week. And then you are having a lot of -4. Most of the time, you forget that the -4 is deducted from our points for that week. Not even that week, the previous point, even before the week starts. So when you plan your transfers very well, you limit the hits. At least it's been seen that the FPL winners worldwide have been taking sometimes about less than 15 hits in the whole season. So normally about around 10, 12, and that's my target. I've been trying to do that, and I see that anytime I reduce my hits, I'm able to gain more points, because minus 4 times 10 is minus 40 points, and FPL one single point is very important. Even when you are bracket with your opponent, there can even be a virtual toss at the end. So 1 point is very, very important in winning in FPL. In fact, as of now, I have planned my transfers for game week 3 and 4. My plan is to bring. I know you are aware. My plan is to bring in. My plan is to bring Jimenez and then Pepe. So it just tells that when we do this thing, sometimes it helps us and not just jump from one player to another. But in saying this, we also need to be flexible. If sometimes when you are too rigid, you lose some of these points as well. Okay, so we'll look at chips. Rowland talked about chips.
Yeah.
Any points before we move to the chips? Yes, I'm here.
Yes. I want to make a point. I don't know if Precious, you agree with me. Okay. Sometimes there are times in the season where you can take a -8 and you feel like you really need to take the -8. I don't know if you've taken a -8 before.
I can't remember. I think I probably have. I just can't remember the specific
scenario
I've taken but I've taken a lot of -4s in the past. Like usually when I first started, I was taking the minuses like the water, like I was just doing minus, not knowing the consequences. And but then we are engineers, so we analyze the thing. We look at the -4, the -8 or whatever, and then we see the points we get after, and then we calculate the point we would have gotten if we didn't take it, and then we always realize actually no, it's a bad idea. It's always
bad idea.
Usually a bad idea. The point where I take them is even last year. Remember when Gundogan went on a stretch?
Sure.
I did a -4 for him. So that's all. That's an example of a -4. Like the signs are there. The signs are there. The player moved into a more advanced position. He wasn't necessarily competing for playing time like he used to do before. And he's a good player, and he's in a good system. He will definitely score. And he's not going to score for that game week. He's going to score for more game weeks to come. So that one it's a no-brainer. If you are doing it because I think this player is good, and it's more wishful and hopeful thinking. That one it'll fire on you. It'll fire on you.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
Okay, Ray, we can move on.
Okay, so chip strategy. Chip strategy is always one thing that brings about winning in FPL. So we'll pick the chips again. So we have wildcard, the first wildcard and the second wildcard. As experienced managers, we know that we have one in the first half and one in the second half. Normally, when do you think is a good time to play the first wildcard? I know there are varieties of philosophies on when to play the wildcard, but what do you think, Precious?
Okay. One of two scenarios. As for the second one, is always close to the end of the season. But the first one of two scenarios. The first one, I really don't want it to come to that.
Okay.
Is when my team is so bad that in order to get the team I want, I might have to do more than -4, maybe -8, -12. Like my team is so bad, like the way I can go from a bad team to a team that I'm satisfied with is in order to do a wildcard. And usually that's a combination of injuries and not starting off with a good enough team to begin with. Which I think we'll discuss that when we get to my team. But usually it's either your team wasn't good, you didn't plan for your initial team, so it wasn't very good, or maybe some of your players they were just injured and there's nothing you can do about it. Yes, so that's when I decide, okay, I have to. But in instances where I get to pick for my first wild card, usually closer to the end of the season, not because it's if I don't use it at the end, it's going to go away. That's too bad, primarily because it's usually the Christmas and New Year's fixtures, which can it's they're usually very, what's the word for it? They come and go. So you can accumulate a lot of points within a few weeks if you're able to,
Yes.
fix your team the right
Mhm.
way. So I try to wait for the Christmas fixtures and then plan my team accordingly based on who is in form around that time, um, and also um, the fixtures, of course. But again, I don't just plan for the Christmas, Christmas fixtures. I also plan for
Yeah.
the fixtures that are coming after. So I don't just look at form. I look at how have they done, maybe in previous seasons or earlier that season. Because some players might be in good form, but there's no evidence to show that it is something that they can maintain because they haven't done it in the past.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Sure. Roland. Roland. Normally, are you
Yeah,
have early first wild card, or you wait till Christmas to play your first wild card?
I think this is my third season or fourth season. I can't even remember. But I
Fourth.
think the
Fourth.
very first season I played it towards the Christmas period, and it did me
Okay.
good. And I think
Okay.
the second season too, I did the same thing. But the third season,
Okay.
that was last season, where we were deceived into thinking that Timo Werner will be a classical player. You know, where,
Hmm.
where there was a lot of hype around Timo Werner, and he took up a
Okay.
lot. But Precious, you have something to say?
That guy is the reason why I fell behind this season. That guy is the reason why.
Oh. All
And you
right.
see,
All right.
when you feel that you are good enough in the game, you feel there's one virtue you are able to learn. That's patience.
Okay. Okay.
And another thing that is also there is denial. So these two things,
Okay.
either one of these
Mm-hmm.
two, whether you are being patient or you are in denial. We started with
Mm.
TAA last season. Oh, TAA, first game, nothing. Second game, third game, fourth game. We kept on going. We didn't want to sell TAA. Why? Because we felt that no, he can go bananas at any time. Unfortunately for us, it didn't happen, and he even ended up getting injured. Right? And that was when we
Yeah.
sold him.
We sold him.
So
We had no option than to sell him.
but we were in denial the whole time. So you can actually tell the number of points that we lost by not owning Lucas Digne at that time
Sure.
because he was flying. But we all felt that because he have TAA, he scored 24 points against Leicester. He can do it again against any other team. So we didn't want to give him
Okay.
up. But that is it. So it's either like Precious said, your team is not good enough to take you forward. Last season, I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, and I felt that Werner
Mm-hmm.
was one of them. I wanted to let him go. So I
Okay.
think together with another player, I can't remember, but he was the atrocious one out of them all. So I felt that
Okay.
I just had to do it. And if you can remember very well, when I did it, it didn't go well for me. It didn't bode
Sure.
well for me at all. I think that's why I told you I ended up in the 16th position because I
Sure.
was in a haste. I felt that no, I should be amongst the top five and keep moving up. And that's one thing that I've been talking about. Don't play your wild card just because you think you are behind. You have a
Okay.
strategy before the season started. So stick to that
Mm-hmm.
strategy. I want to play the wild card late. I want to play it early. Fair enough. Yes, we have to adapt, be able to adapt. But it doesn't mean that as a consequence, you always have to make a change because you are behind. So I think this season I'll play my wild card closer to the end of the first half of the season
Okay. No worry. I think
because it gives me
I
stress the players, right? Getting
Mhm.
the players who are informed. So I think that looking at the fixtures that certain teams have, like you said, you made a plan for Jimenez and all of that. I just think that
Mhm.
all these players are just wait and see for me. Let the
Sure.
season start. Let's not because every season something new pops up. Right now, all of us seated here, we don't even apart from Bruno being conk in the Man United team, we don't know who else is playing.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
So you can't just be in a rush to put in Sancho. Greenwood has been playing
Mm-hmm.
all the games in preseason.
Preseason game.
So has
Yeah.
Jesse Lingard. You understand? So definitely you will not be rushed into the team just like that. So that's my idea anyway.
Okay. Okay. Sure. 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 But me for this season, I'm playing an early wild card. having played a late wild card last season, I've seen how the two are. My take is that when you play the early wild card, you are able to make the quick rise ahead of time,
Okay.
and then when you rise higher, you then manage your rank. Because last season that I played a very late, last season was when I played my latest wild card. That was around game week 16, preparation for game week. I realized that now all the people I wanted to bypass had all the players I was now targeting. So
Exactly.
the effect of climbing was much more difficult for me at that stage. So
Okay.
my plan for this season, which normally I do, is I'm going to play my wild card around game week 5 to 7. But as we have said, we have given managers two options. There are two options for you, whether you play the very early wild card or whether you play the late wild card targeting the Christmas fixtures, because you have a lot of games over a period of time. And or emergency, if you see the team is not going on well, don't be stubborn. Just rearrange the team and then let the wild card help you go on well. Then great. So then with the second wild card, I know most of the time the second wild card is towards the later part of the season when we have a lot of double game weeks. So it's either to get a bench boost or for to prepare for a bench boost team or a triple captain, a triple captain chip. Yes. Any comments on the bench boost and triple captain? When normally do you target it?
Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll talk about bench boost and triple captain in contrast to the free
Sure.
hits. So I might
Okay.
talk about all three at the
Sure.
same
Sure.
time.
All right,
Sure.
that's
That's
fine.
good. Yeah.
The free hits, oh, you already put in the injuries, yeah. The
Yeah.
free hits is it could be either due to injuries that I know are temporary, maybe for a week.
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't really necessarily need to change my team permanently, but I need to change it for that
Okay.
week, right?
Okay.
So play free hits. That's simple enough. The second other option is if I'm satisfied with my team, but there's a double game week coming up.
Okay.
But if I were to play my wild card, or if I were to play my wild card in order to accommodate my team for that double game week, then what would happen is after that double game week, perhaps the players who I have are not good enough going forward. They actually worse
Okay.
than the team that I like my current team. I just want it to both sides for the double game week. I just play
Okay.
the um the free hits where, but when you play free hits, you can't play bench boost. So
Bench boost as well. Sure.
usually I would play it when it's not a massive double game week where I can play the bench boost, but it's good enough such that my starting 11, right, are all, maybe they don't necessarily all have double game weeks, but the majority of them have double game weeks. So I usually play it for a mini double game week. Let's just call it that.
Okay. Mini
Okay.
double game
Okay.
week. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Sure.
mini double game week. For a full blown double game week,
Okay.
I would usually play my wild card, and I'll play it a week in advance, so that because you can't play more than one chip
In the same. Sure. Mm-hmm.
in the same week. Yeah, that's it's honestly the double game week, the mini leagues that I've won in the past.
One. Mm-hmm.
It's always because I was successful in my bench boost and I was successful in my
Well
triple
done. Well
captain.
done. Well done. Well done.
It's
Well done.
it's
Well done.
like when Roland
Say pressure. Say pressure. Say pressure.
what Roland said is so true. I don't think I've
Okay.
had a good start in any FPL. That's my weakness that
Sure.
I'm trying to fix this year, which we'll talk about
Sure.
later. I always
Okay.
start out poor, where there are people that are ahead of me, and there are people that I know their team is not
How
the,
can this
like
person be
I
ahead
can
of me?
tell their team is not
Sure.
the best. But it's
Mm-hmm.
it's 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 the transfers. It's not deviating from. If you know your team is good, if you know sometimes you know your team is good, but some of your players, they just have bad luck at that point.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But
Exactly.
just stay the course. Just stay the course, because what will happen is your opportunity will come.
Sure.
That's why you should plan your transfers
Transfers.
very carefully.
Okay.
Planning is probably what I would say is the most important aspect of this. all the mini leagues that I won, I planned my strategies for bench boost, triple captain, free hit, and the second wild card weeks ahead. As soon as you hear there's going to be a double game week coming up, you start moving your team around, not solely to accommodate it, of course, but if there are some players that you can move around. Let's say if you have Dinia, right?
Dinia,
okay. Good, but he doesn't have a double game week coming up. So what you can do is you can replace him with a similarly priced, similarly good FPL asset that has a double game week coming up, right?
Okay, like Shaw, as you mean Shaw is having.
Shaw, exactly. So just make sure that when you're planning ahead, you are not sacrificing the current health of your team, and that's what I would say about it. So planning ahead is very important. And then, of course, for the triple captain, I also usually do it for a mini game week where I don't have a lot of a mini double game week where I don't have a lot of players with double game weeks, but there's really one good player who has a double game week or sometimes a triple game week. I think last
Aguero. That is why I brought Aguero here.
And you know that player will score goals. Like, it's clear. Even if it's not towards the end of the season, just play it.
Aguero.
You have to play it. So again, Aguero has saved me. I don't know how many times. I don't know how many times, and I'm so sad he's gone. But Aguero triple captain used to be a staple in the past. Triple captain, and then now I think it's moved on to Salah and Fernandes. But triple captain. These three boosts, if you pound them ahead, it will move you from 16th to like top 3 in a single game week if you play them right.
Right, very well. Sure, true. So it means that we need to plan our chips very well as managers. Don't just leave it to chance. Plan it very well. In fact, Rowland will tell you, when the double game week are announced, as soon as they are announced, I start making all my plans down. I have about 4 or 5 drafts, evaluating and seeing which one will be strong, and then deciding, as you said, between whether to play a bench boost or whether to play a triple captain, because normally you might have maybe about 3 double game weeks across board, so you need to plan, and you're allowed to use only 1 chip a week. So which week will be the best week to play the free hit? Which week will be the best week to play the triple captain? Which week will be the best week to play the bench boost? And as we said, we are showing managers that as the season goes on, we'll be giving more updates about that. But we want to tell managers that don't just press it. Plan it very well. Take your time and plan and see how it will go on, and you are sure of winning your various mini leagues. Rowland, anything here?
Oh yeah, I mean, like you're saying that I know that you plan. Even 11, 12 a.m. we are still talking about FPL. Raymond will send you a message at 11 or 12. When you turn off your data, the following morning you have like 30 messages from Raymond. Why, Raymond? Why? Just because he's a good planner, and I like it that way. Because when you have someone around you who plans very well, it makes you become unconsciously conscious, because you're like, hey, you know what? Then I also have to plan my team. I also need to do something. And it's quite ironic. Raymond and myself, we usually don't have the same team or similar players apart from the premium players. And that's the truth. What he looks out for is not what I look out for. But in discussions, it helps. If you have someone who you can also talk to about FPL, just share your team with them. We are in the same leagues, or the same mini league, but all the same, we share ideas. If the week goes well for me, he's happy for me. If it goes well for him, I'm happy for him. It's a competition, all right, but you should know when one is going up, there's nothing you can do about it. It's not because we are in the same mini league, so he has a team, you show me his team and I copy the same team because he's first and I'm third. No, but just because you also have to make it, know who you are going out for, prepare for it. The bench boost, for instance, I played during the latter parts of the season. Triple captain, similarly, not only necessarily because they are double game weeks, but I like to play it around that time. And usually what I do is to look at those who are ahead of me and those who are behind me. Who has played his bench boost? Who has played his triple captain? Who has played his free hit? okay, we are going into the last 3 games of the season. The person ahead of me hasn't played his second wild card, hasn't played his bench boost, but has played free hits and triple captain. The one behind me by 5 points has played only his wild card. He has 3 left. I have played my wild card and I have my bench boost and triple captain. So it all comes down to planning. Because when it's getting to the latter part of the season, that is when there's a lot of pressure on you because you feel you've come too far to let yourself down. So it takes a lot of preparation. If you know what you are going in for, you know that, okay, I planned 2 weeks ahead, 3 weeks ahead of before that game week comes. I know that this is what I'm doing. I'm going in for the free hit. Don't just go in because everyone is going in for it, but try and also be unique. And in being unique, you will also realize certain things. And when you make mistakes, you'll be able to come back stronger the following season.
Sure.
After all, the person who wins is given a school bag. I mean, there's nothing on official FPL that gives you so much. It's just a school bag, a mug. I think, do they give PS5? Then 2 tickets to go and watch a match.
No. A match, yes, but at least the pride of winning is the greatest thing. Sure,
that is what it is. But you should also be able to make mistakes on your own and learn from your mistakes.
Sure.
So that's what I'm going to
say there. Okay. So as you talked about, I just want to show how the bench boost looks like. Some new managers might be joining us. This is how the bench boost looks like. So in the bench boost week, the points from your bench is added to the total points of your players. And as Precious has said, you can't play more than 1 chip in a week, so you need to carefully plan very well. Now, as Rowland, you just said, the point is, most of the time as managers, you ask ourselves, is FPL a marathon or is there a sprint race? Because as you are saying, you ask yourself, why is this guy way ahead of me whilst you think that you rather having a very good team is behind? What's your take? Yes. Is FPL a marathon or is it a sprint race? Let me have a yes or no answer. Like A or B? Arku, is it
A?
Precious, is it a marathon or a sprint race?
It's both, but I think I would say it's more of a marathon than a sprint.
A sprint race. Okay, Rowland, is it a marathon or a sprint race?
To me, it's like he said. Now he's causing me to change my answer because I'm thinking what he said makes a lot of sense. You know, you just don't want to be behind by so many points. So in that sense, it's a sprint, but the end justifies the means, right? So it's more of a marathon. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, and even for a marathon, normally for a marathon, you don't stay way back from the chase, from the pack that is leading. At least make sure you are quite close to them. So as you said, normally don't make sure that the leaders are about 50 points gap. At least make sure you are quite close, so that in the latter part of the season, when you are unleashing your chips, you know that you can close the gap and then be able to win the final lap. The delight about winning FPL is winning in the final lap. When the person who thinks might have been the leader all throughout the season just get beaten in the final 2 weeks, and he has nothing else to do as well.
That is the best. That is the best feeling ever.
Sure. So we it's more of a marathon, but it has a sprint element in it. So let's not just lose track of that. So now, before we go on, I realize most managers have this headache. Now, what do you look at when you are buying a differential? As we talked about, it's important that you plan it, but normally what do you look at in buying a differential, and then what circumstance will make you captain a differential? Because sometimes as the season goes on, these differentials pop up. What should we look at? Precious, what do you think we should be looking at what do you normally look at when you're buying a differential?
Again, it depends what my circumstances are. Usually closer to the beginning of the season, when I don't have much ground to gain. I'm still trying to figure out which players are good and so on and so forth. I tend to have maybe 1 or 2 differentials, and usually they are players that I might not always start. So my team is usually full of players that I think in my mind they are closer to the template team, and then I sprinkle in 1 or 2 differentials before I get my foot in. Where I get really aggressive is when, again, closer to the end of the season, we are talking about the end of the season more than we are talking about the beginning, even though the
Exactly.
season hasn't even started yet. The thing is, the league is won in the last few
In the
weeks.
final lap, sure.
That's the thing.
Sure.
So steady. I'm usually steady with my gambling. It's very calculated towards the beginning, but then towards the end, if I have a lot of ground to make up, I have nothing to lose. Like I have nothing to lose if I get a differential and they don't do particularly well. What am I going to lose? Go from 16th to 20th?
No.
There's not much difference between that.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I tend to be more desperate, and
Okay.
it's paid off for me. Like I remember getting on the Lingard train
Sure.
quite early last season, and
Yeah.
it helped me. It helped me out because I didn't start the season very well last season. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So that's my sort of strategy. Be conservative towards the beginning, and then towards the end, if I have quite a gap to make up, then I'm more aggressive with my
Aggressive.
differential. And usually, what I look out for is players that maybe have gotten new roles in their team,
Okay.
um, or who because of an injury, they've gotten an opportunity to play where
Okay.
otherwise they wouldn't. Um, and the price usually doesn't matter, but usually they are in the between the 5 to 8 million ish range. Players
Okay.
that they are not heavy hitters, but they are not
Okay.
cheap. So usually people don't like that range because it's like a lot of players within that range either they are over they are underpriced, so like everybody grabs them, so they are no longer differential, or they are way overpriced, so like nobody.
Okay.
So if you can have somebody who appears to be overpriced but has a new role on the team, maybe they switch from midfield to forward, maybe a player got hurt and they have to fill a new role where they'll get more points. Those are the
Okay.
kind of players I look out for. And then of
Okay.
course I never captain a differential unless I'm desperate. That's
Unless you are
my
desperate.
I never captain a differential. Or yeah, or unless they've been doing well over the last few weeks
Okay.
and I'm pretty confident that it's the form is good and they're playing a pretty
Sure. Sure.
favorable opponent. I'll capture them. But usually around by that time they are no longer a differential anyway, right?
Differential. Okay. Sure. 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 Roland, you remember I captain Leandro Trossard of Brighton in the
I
blank
do.
game week of last season?
I do. That's
Yes.
the name I
So
wanted to mention. Yes,
yes.
it's
So
true.
so in that circumstance, it was a blank game weekend. We didn't have a lot of major premium players, so you had to carefully take your time and then decide. I think the main guys had quite very difficult fixtures. So Trossard had quite a very good fixture, and he wasn't a player most guys were looking to. But I realized that no, Trossard is my guy. I've been following. He's been in my team in and out for a while, so I know these guys are getting a good fixture. And I captained him, and then my it was one of the reasons why I was able to climb a bit better at the latter part of last season as well. Roland, any take on differential before we look at Aku's team? It's very important that we look at his team as
But you
well.
just have a look at his team. Yeah, I think that like what he said and what you've said, I totally agree with it. It depends on how desperate you are and where you find yourself in the league, right? That's why we've been saying for the beginning of the league, don't be in a rush. You understand? Have the players
Mm-hmm.
that most people have. There's nothing wrong with it. If you can't tell me that maybe in the first week of the season, yes, we have weirdos who are able to
Sure.
maybe captain Torres at the beginning of the season. Torres, then he comes up with 3 goals against Tottenham Hotspurs, and everyone's like, okay,
Okay.
Torres start the next. No, please, you know, naturally, just start with the big hitters. Just have
Okay.
certain one or two differentials in your team,
More
and like
players.
I mentioned, as the season progresses, different players are given different roles. Some can be
Mm-hmm.
made to play center forward, being moved from the
Mm-hmm.
left wing to play center forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Marshall was moved 2 years ago, 2 seasons ago,
Mm-hmm.
from left wing or right wing,
Two.
right to the striker's position. Everyone had him.
Okay.
And when there's a
Okay.
bandwagon, don't be too smart or intentional in not getting the player. Because I remember last season I did a -8, and you were even warning me against it. I told you that I
Okay.
wanted Iheanacho, I wanted Gundogan, and I wanted Creswell. You told me not to do it. if you can remember. And I told you that
I
no, I
remember. Yeah,
thought this.
I'm
And I
I'm
told
very consecutive on transfers. That's why I told you
yes,
that.
yes. And I remember telling you that Gundogan will get me the 8 points. Now it's up to
Yeah,
Iheanacho
yeah.
and Creswell to get
And
me the
first
points
of
that I need. And fortunately
mm-hmm.
for me, that's game week. Creswell got 12 points and Iheanacho got about 7 or 9,
Yay! Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So you even prompted me that, oh, Roland, your hits have, I mean, the hits you took have done well for you. But it doesn't always happen that way because you go in for differentials. When you see that players are doing well, when Creswell started doing well, I knew I wouldn't really get clean sheets from West Ham, but I'll get those assists from him.
Assist.
And
Sure.
that's what it turned out to be. Yes. And many people or many managers, Creswell is expensive, And people and managers were going in for Shaw instead. But like
Mm-hmm.
I was pointing out, and I've been pointing out to managers, is that be a bit circumspect in your choices because Shaw for me is a good option. But I'm looking at the fact that you have so many players in the team who can give an assist at any time. I keep saying this. I keep saying this
Mm-hmm.
every time that I see Shaw as a good option. It's not like he's not good for me. But you can
Okay.
have Maguire giving an assist. You can have Wan-Bissaka giving an assist. You can have about 6 players in the team giving an assist. Whereas a West Ham team is fully focused on Creswell giving an assist. Who is
Okay.
likelier to give an assist? How many
Okay.
free kicks does Shaw take? How many
Okay.
corner kicks does Shaw take? How
Okay.
many forays does Shaw take? So when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to certain, players, yes, we all love them for what they are able to do, how they are able to catch the eye, pass the eye test. But if that player is a differential and getting towards that part of the season, you feel that you need him, get him in. See Lingard, for instance, when he scored
Okay.
against Aston Villa, he scored against
Mm-hmm.
Wolves, he scored. So at that point in time, you knew he was on a hot streak. So just get
Okay.
him and don't try
Okay.
and be clever. I kept Kevin De Bruyne for a long time, a long stretch in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Many managers who were in my mini leagues, I'm sure didn't understand because people felt
Mm-hmm.
that why are you still keeping De Bruyne? And he's a high ceiling player. He can create anything at any time.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it went well for me when they played against I think Chelsea.
Burnley. Okay.
No,
Chelsea.
no, no.
Okay.
Chelsea. He scored 2 goals and gave an assist or two
Yeah.
assists. I can't remember. I think 3-1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
scored
Yeah.
2 goals and he made one assist. And that
Yeah.
for me was one of the game changers of the season because I
Okay.
captained him for that game. Even
Sure.
though there were other players that I could have captained, I just felt at that point in time that this guy has to hit. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone was playing Frank Lampard's team was scoring against them. So why not give it a
Okay.
try? You
Okay.
understand? So in
Yeah.
that sense, even KDB at that point in time was a differential because most
Sure.
players, most managers
We're
didn't
not
have him.
having him. Sure. It's true.
So you see, and he was being played false nine, like Aku was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He's being played in a different position. So as soon as you get wind of that, you know what to do. So that's
Okay.
my take on it.
That's the take on that. Yes. So there are no hard and fast rules, but we all need to
Exactly.
adapt as the season goes on. So in fact, what I recommend for managers as the season goes on, take your time and come back and watch this video and pick the lessons all over again, and then make sure you add it to whatever you know for the season. Because normally when the season goes on, we forget all the lessons that we know, and then
We throw
sometimes
them
we
all
begin to
away,
make
Maza.
we throw them all away as well. So don't worry.
Pressure Barbie and
So
pressure Barbie.
yeah. So Precious, this is your team. Can you take us through your team and then
Okay.
what do you want me to? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Hey, let me have a good look. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
you can have a good look for a few seconds, and then I guess I
Sure.
can go through
Sure. Go
position
through.
by position.
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
usually my first team is, like I said, my first weeks are usually the most chaotic because I don't know what's going on, and I'm very
Okay.
conservative that way. So I'm not a very risky person. So usually my team is a combination of players that I know did well last year and I know are going to do well this year, or I have a feeling they will do well this way. And then, of course, because the budget is 100
Million.
million, you can't afford all the players you want. So sometimes you have to look for good deals, and I usually find the good deals in the newly promoted sides. Unfortunately, this year there weren't a lot of good deals, um, but I'll talk about it. So goalkeeper, this is the most frustrating part for me because I don't know. I'm usually late to the cheap 4.5 million goalkeeper who has a lot of saves.
Okay.
Um, I usually come. I usually realize that's too late, and I don't like
Okay.
spending transfers on goalkeeper. So I usually go for a keeper that I know is likely to have lots of clean sheets because they
Clean
play for a
sheets.
good team, and I don't care. I don't really care about the price. And then the
Mm-hmm.
second keeper would be that's cheap 4.5 million. So Ederson is obviously my know high flying keeper
High flying keeper, you do.
who will get lots of clean sheets. That's just
Okay.
just how it is because of the team he plays for.
Guaranteed.
And then also, I mean, he gets one or two assists a season. So and then of course Sanchez. I mean, 4.5 million. He will start. He will have save points. No brainer. I just wouldn't start Sanchez though. That's my problem. I'm not much of a risk when it comes to keeper. I just want my guaranteed clean sheet. I don't care about save points because the save points game. Every time I play the game, it backfires on me. And then my defense, I have Diaz. He was the reason why Man City had so many clean sheets last year. And then I don't think his role will change. Trent, I'm not necessarily picking him for clean sheets. Although Liverpool has a good defense, I'm picking him because he's on corners, he's on free kicks, he's on a lot of set plays, and also, by the way, he can score. So
Yeah.
really, if you don't have Trent, then you are really cheating yourself because he's actually not a defender. He's he attacks a lot. He attacks a lot.
Seriously.
Uh yeah. So and then Shaw is the last one that I'm not sure about. It was either a Manchester United defender or a Chelsea defender. I would pick a Chelsea defender if I knew more about the team. But
Okay.
I went with Shaw for now because I know he'll play for United. I don't know Chelsea's um, team in terms of who's going to start so well now. I'm waiting for the preseason to end before I get a good idea on
Oh,
that.
Barbara, man.
Yeah, yeah. So so then I'll probably have to move Shaw along with Loughton, um,
Okay.
and then upgrade. But that means I'll have to get a 4 million defender in place of Loughton, and that would
Okay.
probably come from a promoted side. So Shaw and Loughton are two players that will probably lead my team before the beginning of the season. But Nico Firmino, definitely, I'll still keep him because he has experience in the Premier League.
Yes.
And then of course Salah, it's I don't think we
A
need to talk
no-brainer.
about. I don't think we need to talk about him. And I know some people might be scratching their heads. I don't have Fernandez. This is
Yeah, I don't get
something
it.
that
Why?
this is something that they don't tell you about being an FPL manager. There's a bit of bias involved. There's a bit of bias involved. I just am hesitant to have two 12.5 million players on my team. Primarily because even though Fernandez is good, first of all, I don't really like Manchester United, to be honest. I don't like the way they play. And if Fernandez was like, what, 10 million, I'll get him. But 12.5 million, I am just not sold yet. But that's the reason why I have Jota and Grealish. I could easily swap Jota and
Swap.
Grealish out for
Sure.
Fernandez and a cheap midfielder. So I've left the chance for that, and it also depends on where Grealish is because if Grealish goes to like Manchester City, he's 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 not he's leaving my team because I have no idea what role he's going to be playing in Manchester City. Um,
Mhm.
and then of course Jota, when the time that he played last season,
Sure.
he did pretty well. I think he needs a new season to be more familiar with the team and their system. And I think injuries didn't really help him. Rafinha, I mean, Rafinha was my differential for a while before people realized that he was actually pretty good. So this is more of a I'm paying. It's it's more of an emotional thing, but of course he too he can leave the team anytime depending on what I see in the preseason. And then Ruben Neves, he's just a placeholder. I don't know if he might be on my bench depending on the last midfielder is always a player who you don't necessarily want to start, but he can start for you if your other midfielders are not
Okay. Okay.
are unable to start. So that's his position for me. Ollie Watkins, his position there also depends on where Grealish is at the beginning of the season. Although he
Mm,
did well, he still did pretty well after Grealish left
got injured last season.
with injury.
Yep.
Um, I don't have any other explanation to other than I don't trust him as much as I would trust
Okay.
somebody like Mikhail Antonio, for example.
Antonio. Okay.
Um, when we get to Antonio, he's the only forward for West Ham, and when when West Ham he scores like he's involved in like half of their goals. So
Sure.
if West Ham scores, the probability that it's going to be a Mikhail Antonio goal or
Antonio.
assist, so that it's no break. His only problem is he gets injured very often,
A lot.
but other than that, you know, very very productive. And then the Pookie one, I don't know why he's there. He's just I needed a forward that was is this six? I think he's 6 million. He's just a
Yeah.
placeholder. I'll change him out. I'll swap him out before the end of the season,
And the season.
before the
Yeah.
beginning of the season rather, unless I
Sure.
see something other different that changes my mind. But yeah, so my team is full of players who did very well last year, who um who I project to do well again this year. And then
This
a
year.
few new transfers. I like Nico Firmino a lot. I like him a
Okay.
lot. He played
Yeah.
for a defense that was the best
The championship.
in the championship, and he's also a right back. And I'm not sure how that defense will translate to the EPL, but that's why he's on my bench, right?
That's
So
right.
we'll see how that happens. What I've noticed is I usually pick defenders who are I expect to be good, but then I don't know if they'll be good right away. Then they always end up being good right away, and then I actually have to start them. So Yunchu was one cycle in
Okay.
the past. Tariq Lamptey was one once
Okay.
in the that was last season before he
Okay.
got hurt. So I'm very confident with the Firmino pick. So
Move.
yeah, so
Sure.
that's my team.
That's
If
it.
you have any suggestions, any ideas, ignore the Bruno Fernandez one. That one me I know it's
It's
I know it's a very dangerous route to go, but
Mhm.
I mean I feel like Grealish would be able to replicate or approximate his FPL value
FPL.
um, if he remains in Aston Villa. So
That's it.
that's my small gamble, but it's not really a gamble if you look at
A double.
How Grealish played last year. He was very, very, very
Sure.
good.
Sure. 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 So I want everyone to note what you are saying is that even though this is your team for now, it's susceptible to changes based on the preseason games. So
Yes,
it is not a major team. Yes, I
yes,
know most managers usually wait later, but because you had to be on the show, we had to force
yeah,
you to get your team as well.
yes,
So
yes. You're
in
right.
fact,
You're right.
they shouldn't say that. Look at our managers' team as well. If they want to really see your team, they should wait just a
Yeah,
week,
of course.
about 2 days, they will see how solid the whole team is. But the point is, you are having faith in the players you know will do well.
Yeah,
Sure, Diaz, you are sure of the clean sheets in City, Alexander Arnold, Ederson. And the funny thing about City, sometimes when they even meet the big teams, they're able to keep their clean sheets. So
yeah,
it's not a problem even when you are spending because you know you are assured of the points there. So I'm okay with the team. In fact, I'm actually okay with the team. I know the way your team is set up. The good thing about the way your team is set up, you can always make a change from one side to the other, and that's one thing most managers should know. don't make your team too rigid such that in case anything pops up and you need to make a transfer, you can't make it in 1 week. Because sometimes you need to go and make about 4 transfers and then so as you said, even though you are not having Fernandes, you have a plan for Fernandes in case you need to bring him in as well. So managers should watch out for that. Anytime you are making your team, make sure that it's flexible enough for you to swap from one side to the other and then you move on. Rowland, anything?
Well, it's a first draft, so I think that with all the discussions we've had, I'm thinking that he's even realized that there are some players who want to change immediately.
Sure.
Looking at because I think Pookie has good fixtures. So
No,
Pookie
Pookie's fixtures are not good at the start. They are good
From
after
game
game
week
week 5. Game week 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Pookie is definitely. He is. I think he's just there for as a placeholder.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just thinking that for the start, like he's been saying throughout the show, he's a conservative person or a manager. So he feels that let me go with what I know. And I'm confident that I'll get the points, the average points I'm supposed to get every game week from these players. Until I get to see the players who are now performing, then I get them into my team. If I'm right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that for now it's cool because when I showed my team, I had Watkins, I had Antonio.
Wait, let me get your team for you. I should have it somewhere. Yeah, this is your team.
Yeah. So you see, he went for Diaz. I went for Stones. I went for Chilwell. He spoke about getting a Chelsea defender.
Yes.
I went for Shaw. So I went heavy at the back. You understand? Okay.
Yeah.
Then I went for Dele Alli, who I think will be more or less a differential. But looking even at the preseason, he's performing, and my mind is being drawn to Son. Seriously, because Son is performing so well. My mind is being drawn to Son. But Dele Alli looks like, because he's been assisting and scoring in preseason. I think they played a game yesterday or the day before yesterday. He assisted and scored, right? So Dele Alli, I'm looking at Buendia. Like I told you, I want Grealish, so I'll try and find my way around it. But this is a team that I'm looking at, and it was pointed out to me that my defense was too heavy, it was too hard hitting. It's not good enough in terms of choices. That means I have to play a 4-4-2, meaning either Ivan Toney, Antonio, or Watkins misses out in a game, which is not good enough. So it means that I have to bring one person down. So if I'm to even bring Chilwell down, I can upgrade to Grealish, and then I can play my Grealish. Yes, then I can play my 3-4-3. But Buendia is doing fantastic stuff at Aston Villa in his preseason.
I told you.
Yes, he's giving some outrageous assists. He gave Watkins.
I told you.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's starting on the right.
Yeah,
that's my problem. So,
but he cuts in during the games.
Yes, understood. And my only issue there is that it was because Grealish wasn't playing. That's my worry.
Okay.
Because if Grealish is to play, that means that they'll be in each other's way. That's what's on. So it's like going in for someone you know who can perform at the level. You remember Marlvin mentioned it, that Buendia is not proven so much in the Premier League. When he came with Norwich, he didn't do much. But in the Championship, he did a lot before they came to the Premier League, if you remember.
Okay. Yeah.
And subsequently, now he's surrounded by better players, agreed.
Sure.
But the issue for me is the mainstay in the team is Grealish. Everyone looks up to Grealish in the team. No matter how well Buendia does, unless Grealish leaves, of course. But if Grealish doesn't leave, then it means that he will still be their main man.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
My other concern is Grealish being the assister of the assister. You know, Grealish has a lot of fouls. And that is one thing that it's a bone of contention for me between Grealish and Buendia. Because when you look at last season, Grealish got, I think, 8 assists, if I'm right. or 13.
Something around that.
I looked it up. Yeah, it was in one of our shows.
Okay.
Even when he got injured, but I realized that in most of the games, when he was playing with Watkins, you realized that when he passes to McGinn or he passes to another player, that player passes to the person who scores, and it becomes so infuriating. Right? So I don't know, with Buendia coming in, he's not really a selfish player. He plays team football. That's one thing I like about Grealish. He plays team football. So I don't know if you also want Buendia to shine, or you say, Masa, what buy and boss. You can't go and do Foucault over here. You understand? So either one you go with is good. But definitely Bosu. So you'd have to weigh them up. But I think for sure, Chilwell, I'll be selling for someone in midfield. That is it. Either I'm upgrading to Son or I'm upgrading to Grealish. But my front three stay the same.
Okay, not bad then. Okay, so I'll go back to so that's with Precious team. So at least you have shown managers on the FPL Ambassadors show at least 4 teams for them to pick ideas and then to learn from. Rowland, will you wrap up with us before we?
Okay. So as we said in the beginning of the show, we are bringing you quality content, bringing you managers who know their business, know their FPL very well. And we would like for you to subscribe to the channel, which is very important for us. We have people viewing. We have so many views at the end of the week before the next show comes on, but we don't have as many subscribers. So we kindly ask that as you are watching, you would also subscribe for us. And the big news is that we have a prize for the winner of this year's FPL Ambassadors League, which is a new league, mini league. So that's the code there, UHFZZC. So if you can't see it well, I am saying it for you to hear. So UHFZZC or UHFZZC, whichever one you prefer, kindly join the mini league. But before you do, subscribe to the channel. It's very important to us. So tell a friend to tell a friend. Hey, shout outs to my doctor, Dr. Josiah, who I went to. Funny thing, I went to the hospital this week, and I was watching a tweet from Andy of FPL, and the doctor just showed up behind me. When I entered the consulting room, he said, "Lucas Digne." I was like, "Who?" Lucas Digne. I was like, "Is that medication?" He's like, "No, I saw you watching your FPL."
Okay.
I saw you watching FPL. I was like, "Oh, okay. Why do you play?" He said yes. So shout outs to Dr. Josiah. He promised to join the league, so hopefully he'll join. And thank goodness Lucas Digne is not a name of any medication. So please don't go to any pharmacy. Don't go to any pharmacy to ask for Lucas Digne. All right, so that's from us. Precious Arku, we are so grateful for joining us this week. It's been fun having you on. Yeah, it's been great. It's been great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Raymond, for having you as well. Unfortunately, Marlvin couldn't be with us this week, but definitely next week he'll be on with us.
He'll surely be with us.
When we say a goodbye to all our viewers, have a lovely week and weekend.
Bye-bye. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.